Welcome to this YouTube version of my AI inspiration briefings, which typically I run for clients to help inspire everyone from individual contributors to managers to senior leaders. The AI inspiration briefings are typically 1 hour sessions. Ideally, they're delivered in person, sometimes virtually. They can be run one-off for annual kickoffs, team meetings, sales kickoffs, or they can be run in multiple sessions, typically for breakout briefings in an afternoon of a group setting. The goal is to ensure that every single person that attends, no matter what their role, what their function, how long they've been in the business, is inspired to use AI in their daily work and to come away from this 1 hour with at least one way of using AI straight after the session. And we'll give them some templates and guides to help them to do that. What I'm going to walk through now is the standard 1 hour session, but these can be customized either to add in some hands-on workshops to get people interacting with the tools, or the use cases can be evolved to incorporate your company-specific language and use cases. So with that, let's dive into the session. Just 2 years ago, 24 months ago, AI, artificial intelligence, was the domain of data scientists and people with deep learning experience and machine learning PhDs. But today, this little chat box on the right gives you, as an individual, the ability to be 10 times the person that you were before, accelerating the way that you work and changing the way that teams and entire companies can compete through this year and the next. Over the next hour, I'm going to walk you through some examples of how you can use publicly available tools today to accelerate your career and really put yourself in a different position by the time that you get to the end of 2025. Now, we've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to ask you to hold questions until the end. I may well cover what you are thinking of asking, and then we will have some time for questions when we do get to the end of the session. Now, in August of this year, I was on this very ferry traveling to this very island with my family on our summer holiday. While the kids slept next to me, my wife and I were reading. My wife was reading a crime thriller, picking up some tips on how to top me off. And I was reading The Jolt Effect, which is a business book which talks about the challenges that business buyers have in buying new technology, the fear that they have of making the wrong decision. And it gave me an idea for a product that I wanted to build. But as I came back from that holiday, I struggled with the challenge that so many non-technical founders suffer with, which is I've got an idea, but I've got absolutely no way to bring this thing to life because I don't know how to code. Even in September of this year, I was messaging friends and colleagues to find out if anyone knew of a technical co-founder that could partner up with me to try and bring this idea to life. But then an idea struck me. Over the summer, so many new tools and models had come out from OpenAI, from Claude, I will touch on it a little bit later. Some new UI and development tools had been launched. And I just thought, let's see how far I can get on my own. And so I started using Claude as my technical co-founder. I'm going to walk you through this as an example in a little bit of time. And I used Claude as a project to guide me and architect the solution that I wanted to build. I used a tool called V0 to mock up all of the individual components that were going to make up the application that I was going to build. I used an AI development environment called Cursor to write all of the code, but also to teach me about what it was writing so that I could learn how to read and to write code myself. And just 12 weekends later, I was able to publish a fully working app with paying customers out to production, where people can engage and chat with AI through this application. Now, that process was 12 weeks from having an idea on a ferry to getting an application live in production. Now, my goal here is not to inspire you to become a developer. That was just my own journey. But the reason for telling you that story is to show you how possible it is in a very short period of time to go from not having any knowledge of a particular subject to being, let's say, fairly competent in that subject. Certainly not an expert, but getting you up to the level where, in my case, I was able to deploy an app to production. And so I like to think about the AI tools that are available as an AI support team. It doesn't matter what role you're in, whether you are in HR, whether you're in finance, whether you're a manager, whether you're an individual contributor, whether you're just starting in the industry that you're currently employed in, or whether you've been an expert in that industry. You're able to surround yourself with teachers, coaches, planning specialists, an assistant to do some of your work, a developer in my example, someone that can analyze or write or research on your behalf. There really is no such thing as an individual contributor anymore. Everyone is a leader of your AI assistants. And that gives you, as an individual, just a fantastic opportunity. And we're already seeing this play out in companies. The rise of an AI-enabled employee and how that can transform your career success. If you, as an individual contributor, or a manager, or a senior leader, have surrounded yourselves with these AI tools and assistants, you are able to accelerate away from everyone else that is yet to adopt those tools. I like to think of the early days of electrical tools, and you can imagine a builder arriving to do work at your house with what existed then, a manual drill, a hand drill. It took a long time. It was not a great quality and expensive because it took a long time for someone to do their work. Then along comes the hand drill, the power drill with its hammer function. It's super quick. And the moment a builder turns up at your house and says, right, well, I'm using electric drills, well, of course, that is the route that you're going to go. A much higher quality, much faster. And for you as the customer, it's just a lot more efficient. And there's no going back. And that is exactly what we're seeing in the world of work. When people, employees, are adopting these tools, they have surrounded themselves with the electric power tools, whilst the majority of employees are still using the hand drill. It is just an amazing hack to accelerate your career up and into different divisions in the company. So what are we going to cover today? Well, I'm going to try and keep things light on slides, and I'm going to focus on showing you some of these tools, the tools that I use today. And in fact, you may be familiar with them, but I'm going to show you some unique and powerful ways to use them to extend your work. I'm then going to give you some examples to be able to try these out on your own afterwards. And I'm going to provide you with some templates and worksheets that you can use to apply your own role into the tools that I've shown you. And then it's for you to share those ideas around your team and really embed these behaviors as you accelerate off through the rest of this year. So with that, let's begin and dive into the core of today's session. Why is it that we're talking about this now? ChatGPT came out in autumn of 2022, so just over 2 years ago from when I'm recording that. And ChatGPT and Claude and the other available LLMs today, large language models, are what we call narrow AI. They are very good in a specific task. And those tasks relate to the knowledge that the model has been trained on. So very good at some things and not so good or terrible at some other things. That's where we are today. The next level is what is called artificial general intelligence. And this is where a model is at a human level across an entire set of domains. So if you think about a PhD student, now that might be a doctor of medicine, they are very, very good in their own domain. But if you start asking them about something else, let's say you take that doctor and you ask them about machine learning or code, they've got no idea because they've never been trained in that. Artificial general intelligence is like having a PhD graduate that is good at absolutely everything. So whilst they're at the human level, they're way surpassing any individual human that could only be good in their own narrow field. The level beyond artificial general intelligence is artificial super intelligence. And this is where things get very exciting and for some people a little scary. This is where AI moves beyond the capabilities of humans across every individual domain. But not only that, this is where AI starts to be able to improve itself without our help. So we can think here about models that are creating other models and improving themselves. And this is where AI really takes off. Now, you might think AI, it has been around from its early inception since the 40s and 50s when people have been starting to talk about this. ChatGPT came out 2 years ago and it's developing at a steady rate. People are starting to use it. Why is this so important right now? Well, this ARC benchmark is one of the commonly used ones to score the new models that are coming out against a set of specific tasks relating to mathematics, relating to coding, relating to logical reasoning. And you can see that GPT-3 that just preceded ChatGPT, and then GPT-4 that came out just in 2023, the progress is fairly steady. But in the last 12 months, as some of OpenAI's newer models, so O1, their first reasoning model, and O3 that was announced but not yet released just before Christmas of 2024, you can see the exponential growth that is coming through these models. And this is just predicted to continue. And these are just the OpenAI models, but this is replicated across all of the other frontier model providers. So here we are, right on the right-hand side of this graph. Things are getting extremely interesting. Now is the time for business users to figure out how to use these tools. In a blog post that was published at the start of January of 2025, Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, who make ChatGPT, we are now confident we know how to build AGI. And remember, that was the step beyond where we are today, where AI is competent across all domains. We are now confident we know how to build AGI as we've traditionally understood it. We believe that in 2025, this year, we may see the first AI agents join the workforce and materially change the output of companies. This is why it is so important for business users, for managers, for senior leaders outside of IT to understand what this means and how to incorporate it in your company. Because if you don't, someone else will, and they'll disrupt your category. What does this mean for you as an individual? Now, I don't know if you've ever watched the film The Matrix. If you haven't, fantastic film, which talks about a dystopian future, in which case everything that we humans think we are perceiving is actually a simulation. And in one of the scenes, Keanu Reeves' character has Kung Fu uploaded to him in this simulation, almost like a computer file. And suddenly he's able to carry out this amazing Kung Fu fight in slow motion in the simulation that he's in. So I think from your perspective about if you could upload any kind of skill or download it, what would that be? Would that to be suddenly I'm amazing at creative writing, at designing images or videos or editing? Would it be suddenly I'm an amazing market analyst? I'm able to analyze financial models and potential acquisitions that we want to make? Would it be that you suddenly want to know certain things about industries, about the account that you're selling into, about legal frameworks and regulations, about new governance terms that you need? Would you, like I needed to understand how to code and suddenly download that? Would you like to be selling in different languages and be able to communicate with different people and different cultures? This is what is available to you on your doorstep right now. And with just a matter of a few hours to be able to download these skills and be someone completely different to who you are today. And if that's what we're all doing as individuals, what does that mean to the organizations that we work in? Now, regardless of industry and the size of a company, you could pretty well draw any organization like a pyramid. There is a CEO at the top, a small number of senior leaders. You then get down to middle management and some high performers before you get to the large base of individual contributors across all the different functions and regions of a company. But AI is going to transform this from a pyramid to a pentagon. Now, how can that be? Well, so much of the work that is done today by individual contributors it's what I call a sticking plaster. Some of these roles exist purely to figure out gaps between processes, data, and different teams. You can think of anyone with a role of analyst or tester or documentation or process reviewer. These are all roles that are going to be picked up by AI in future. And who's going to be using that AI? Well, it is going to be some super-powered, AI-enabled high performer in the middle of the organization. And my goal with the session that we're running through today is to help you to evolve yourself into being that high-powered, AI-enabled super player in the middle of the organization. So let's talk now about some practical applications for how you can use AI today to help to transform the way that you're working. Now, the tools that I'm going to walk you through today are all publicly available tools that you will likely have heard of. The first is a tool called Notebook LM, which comes from Google. You don't need an account for it. I'm going to show you how you can use that. Claude is a chat model. If you've used ChatGPT, then you know how to use Claude. Claude actually comes from a company called Anthropic, which was founded by some of the original team at OpenAI. And on the right here, we've got ChatGPT, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's the most widely adopted chat LLM in companies today. And I'll show you some examples of that. For each of these, you may well have been provided with a company account, or you may well have paid or have a free account for yourself, but they're easily accessible. Now, before we go into the individual tools, it's important to have a think about how we're going to try and improve and help you with the way that you're doing work. So let's understand, what is human work? I like to break it down into three aspects. So the first is work that you receive from other people. Regardless of the role or the company that you're in, you get stuff given to you by colleagues. You might get stuff from clients or customers. You might get stuff from suppliers or partners. Your manager, I'm sure, gives you stuff, and you may be given tasks by executives. So these are requests. We can think of, I've been given a proposal. I've been given a contract to review. I've been given some new regulations that I need to understand. I've been given a report from someone else. These are the things, the documents, the tasks that you're given from someone else. Then you get into the core of your job. What is it that you actually have to do? And you could imagine looking at your job description and it's got listed out in bullet points. These are the things that you need to do. Depending on your role and the company you're in, you're designing things, you're writing reports, you're researching, analyzing, you're learning something, you're managing, planning, communicating, updating. These are all the things that you have to do through a normal week or month. And then finally, you've got work that you then pass on to other people. And again, this could be colleagues, clients, customers, suppliers, partners, managers, executives. It could be investors or your board if you're in a leadership position. This is documentation and outputs that you have to pass to other people. Could be similar requirements that you're passing on to a partner. It could be a proposal that you're passing on to a potential customer, or requirements that you're sending to a potential supplier. Let's go through each of those three buckets in turn. Firstly, we're going to look at work that you receive from someone else. Now, we could think here of we've been given a proposal, we've been given some requirements, we've been given a new regulation or a contract that we need to understand. What is this thing? Can you teach me about this subject if it's something that I'm not familiar with? Can you explain it to me like I'm a child? Having understood this document, now we need to summarize it. What are the important parts? I've been given this request by my manager. How am I going to prioritize this? What's the important part? And where's the most risk to me or to the company? And then we need to plan. So what am I going to do with this request or requirement? What follow-up questions should I be asking to help me to deliver? What information is missing from this? So this is this process of receiving something from someone else and being able to handle it appropriately. Now, to give you an example, many companies right now are having to deal with a new AI Act that is being deployed by the EU. And the first set of those regulations are coming in February of this year. It's happened quite quickly. And the document itself is 144 pages long. And like so many of these regulations, it's very difficult to read and to understand. So let's use Notebook LM as a tool for quickly analyzing this. So notebooklm.google.com, you can go and set up an account there for free. There are business accounts, but this is just a free one. And you'll see the simple screen. It's not complicated. Over on the left-hand side, we have our sources. And here you can add anything from a document, you can add a YouTube video, you could add a Google Drive, you could add a link to a website. It's very easy for you to upload a source of information. So that could be, in this case, the new EU AI Act, which I've uploaded a 144-page PDF. What Notebook LM does is very quickly incorporate and understand and read that documentation. And then in the middle here provides us with a super nice chat window. It's already providing me with some questions. How does the EU AI Act balance innovation? So here, for example, I could just say, what is the timeline for the first regulations to come into force? And Notebook LM understands the context of that document, and it's going to be able to provide me a very specific answer that only comes from what is in this document. It's not going out to the internet. First regulations come into force on February the 2nd, 2025, and so on and so on. So that's super easy. So the chat is one aspect of it. Now it's on the right-hand side here where things get really interesting. Notebook LM has uploaded all of that information from the 144-page document, and it has created in this case, a 31-minute podcast interview between two AI-generated hosts discussing the EU AI Act. And more than that, I can actually get involved in the discussion. So I'm going to kick this thing off, and then I will get involved with the discussion with the two hosts.
Whole enchilada of trying to regulate AI, right?
And we're going deep. We're not doing summaries. Our listeners sent us, chunks from the actual EU AI Act PDF.
Yeah, straight from the source, no filter.
So, first impressions.
Ambitious, Definitely ambitious. I mean, to harmonize AI rules across all those different EU countries, that's a lot.
It's like trying to herd cats.
A little bit, yeah. But it's not just
Oh, hey there, what's up?
I know we're going to get into this, but what's the timeline for the first set of the regulations to come into force?
That's a great question. And actually, it's super important to understand the timeline of all this.
yeah, it's not like they're flipping a switch and everything is different the next day.
Right. So some of the rules, the ones that are about outright bans on certain uses of AI, those will apply first.
Those are the unacceptable risk AI practices they've identified, which are a big deal.
Yeah, those are set to come into force starting February 2nd, 2025. So pretty soon.
It's a bit of an anticipation, but it's because they want to get ahead of those particular dangers.
Exactly. But the rest of the act, all the stuff about high risk.
Ah, yeah, uh-huh.
And in terms of who this applies to, does it apply to companies that are outside of the EU as well?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. And it's actually a key part of what makes this act so impactful.
Yeah, it's not just a local thing. The EU isn't just regulating what happens within its borders.
That's right. The act has a really wide reach. If your AI system is being used in the EU, or if the output of your AI system is.
So I'm going to pause there, but that gives you an idea of how here is a really complex and long document, but I'm able to interact with two AI generated podcast hosts and discuss the subject. Now, the AI Act is not going to be of interest to you, but you may be interested in a customer contract. You may be interested in the transcript of one of the prospects that you're selling into. You may be interested in a new product release from a competitor. And this is what you can upload in here and then start having this conversation with Notebook LM. So that's a really easy way of you using a tool to understand and dissect requests that are being provided to you and to take on skills and knowledge that you wouldn't otherwise have. Okay, so that was Notebook LM. Let's now move on to the second bucket of work. And this is work that you do. And this is the core of your job description. Now, each of you work in different roles and different levels of seniority. So to make this useful for everyone, let's just think about a unit of work as a project. Now, that could be you've got to hire someone. It could be that you've got to sell to a customer. It could be that you've actually got to launch a new product. But think about a project as a set of tasks, a piece of work that you're doing. Now, for any project that you're working on, there are goals, objectives, the thing that you need to achieve with that project. You've probably got a set of instructions. This is how you need to achieve this project and achieve those goals. You're likely not the only person that is part of that project. There are people within your team or maybe others across your company that are reliant on this project being successful. There is probably some background information that you have about previous projects or about how to approach something like this. And there may well be templates for either how you should follow this project or what you're expected to deliver out of this project. Maybe it is a requirements document, or maybe it's a job description or something along those lines. Now, what I'm going to show you here is a tool called Claude. As I mentioned earlier, Claude is a chat platform in the same way that ChatGPT is a chat-based AI platform. So if you've used ChatGPT, then you'll be familiar with Claude. Whilst it's less adopted, I have certainly found it to provide fantastic results. And some of the things I'm going to show you now really move it from a simple chat to actually a co-worker. I'm going to dive over into Claude here. And one of the great features of Claude is what is called a project. Now, I should highlight that just before Christmas, ChatGPT also launched Project, so you can do something similar, or maybe not quite as developed as this in ChatGPT. At the start, I mentioned developing a product over the course of the last 16 or so weeks. And that product is called Koala. And right at the start of that project, I built a Claude project. And here you can see Koala. Koala is an AI agent we're building that helps businesses to buy better. This project will act as my technical co-founder, helping me to design the front end and back end of the application and guiding me through the process of launching our MVP. So I've told Claude exactly what is going on. Next up, we've got some project instructions here. You are my technical co-founder, here to help me bring my business idea to life. You'll provide clear and pragmatic suggestions that will assist us in bringing a minimum viable product to market quickly. You're comfortable pushing back on any requests I make that don't make sense or would introduce unnecessary complexity to the design. As a non-technical founder, I'm the one building the application using these tools. So here I've really set the scene for Claude to guide me and to push back and letting him know that I don't know anything about this subject. So I want it to guide me. In addition to that, within a project, I'm able to provide access to documents. So these are a couple of Google Docs where I've written a long version of the project and what is involved, the licensing and who's going to use it. I've written an overview of what the app actually is going to do. And then I've uploaded various details from my project files, including the schema and so on. Now, this is all about giving Claude as much context of the subject that we're talking about here, so that when I ask questions, I don't have to provide all of that context in one go. So I'll just give an example here. I am now happy with the MVP that is in production. And I now want to start thinking about V2. What would you recommend are the top 3 features or enhancements we should start to work on? Now here within Claude, we can choose whether we want a different style. I'm going to say I want explanatory because I really like Claude to help me. And away we go. Now, because Claude in this project knows all of the background to my project, I've not had to explain the background to what we're doing in my prompt. I've just asked as if I was talking to a coworker. And here we go. Thanks for sharing these documents. Bring me up to speed. I've reviewed the business model, current architecture, technical implementation. Let's think about the top 3 features that we should add on to our MVP. And here we go. Enhanced knowledge management and learning, collaborative decision framework, a vendor integration platform. These are really nice targeted ideas. The point here is that I didn't have to put anything in my prompt about what Koala is and the value proposition for the users. It already knows that. Let me give you another example of that for anyone that is in a management role. So as a manager, you have to lead and coach your team members, but so often you get caught up in the day-to-day of whether that's forecasting or planning or dealing with your own manager, that it's very difficult to be that leader that you really envisaged when you started off managing this team. So here's an idea where you can create a project for each one of your direct reports. In this case, a chap called Jack Sparrow, a project to help me as a manager to coach and lead Jack effectively. In my instructions here, I'm a manager in Acme's legal team. I've got 10 direct reports and Jack Sparrow is one of them. You are to act as my executive coach and support me in my efforts to coach and lead Jack to the best of his potential. I'm a follower of the Radical Candor framework and want to ensure that I embed that model in my interactions with Jack. In your project knowledge, you have access to details of Jack's role, his personality traits, short and long-term goals, and importantly, the regularly updated one-to-one document that catalogues our weekly interactions. In this project, I'll ask you questions and for advice. You should provide me with options and questions to help me think through the right approach. You should push back on me if what I'm suggesting conflicts with the approach of Radical Candor. And of course, you would have your own instructions there depending on your leadership or management style. What I've then done here is then, because I use Google Docs, I've linked in all of the documents that I would be using to manage and coach this individual. the always updated one-to-one notes after our weekly one-to-ones. Maybe we did an assessment, like a DISC or a situational leadership assessment with this individual last year. Maybe we've got some OKRs or goals that we've set. Maybe we did a performance review through Workday last year. We've got the job description for this individual, and then we've got their long-term goals, maybe around buying a house or having children, whatever it might be, both personally or career-wise, that we know through being their manager. And then the types of questions that you might be asking of this project. I'm preparing for my first one-to-one of 2025 with Jack. Using what you know of Jack's long-term goals and the outputs from his last performance review, can you help me propose 3 stretch objectives and key results for him to achieve this year that will motivate and inspire him? You might also ask what some of your gaps are as a manager that could best support Jack. You might ask how you could create some OKRs for Jack. So this concept of a project being a wrapper around a specific piece of work that provides you with really great contextual guidance from Claude. You'll come up with many other examples, but if you're selling into a customer, if you're buying something, if you're launching a project, if you're opening up in a new country, if you're assessing a competitor, all of these are great examples for a project. Now, coming back, let's start thinking through another way of using AI to support us in the work that we do. And here we're going to start looking at some ChatGPT features. A word I want to introduce to you is reasoning. And we think about how we work as humans. So here in the UK today, it's very, very cold. And for a lot of people, they're going outside and their car won't start. And so you think, right, well, why won't my car start? Well, the lights don't come on when I turn the key. Okay, well, that's interesting. So that would suggest that it's not the engine because the starter motor isn't turning over. So that would suggest that it's probably the battery that must be empty. So actually, I've got some charging cables. I can run back into the house and I can charge up the car and get on my way. And this is what we do as humans. We start from the top level and then we go one by one by one to get to the solution. It's sometimes called chain of thought. We go from the start through these micro steps. Now, as I switch over to ChatGPT, I mentioned earlier about the O1 model, which was launched formally just before Christmas. And the O series of models are the first reasoning models that ChatGPT has launched. Now, I'll give you an example here. On my website for the product that I built, I wanted to provide visitors with a way of calculating the cost of running a technology buying process. And I had no idea about how I'd go about approaching that. So here's my prompt to O1. I'd like you to help me calculate an estimate for what it costs a company to run a buying process for a new technology. In our example, we're thinking about the purchase of a new enterprise technology, such as a payroll system or customer service platform. I've then provided a little bit of background, the average number of people in a buying process, the average time of a buying process, which comes from some independent research. Typically, companies have got 4 vendors, and I'm asking them to make some assumptions about other things. So by using your knowledge of a typical buying process, the required internal work and meetings with vendors, I'd like you to make an estimate for what it costs to run a buying process like this. So the first thing that I would point out to you is this is quite a long prompt. It is not a one-liner. I've really thought through what it is that I want ChatGPT O1 to do. Now, thought about technology buying process costs for 51 seconds. I'm going to click on this, and what ChatGPT does is it shows me the process that is gone through, that reasoning. I'm formulating a budgeting strategy, I'm assessing the time commitment, I'm tracking the senior leaders, I'm estimating manager or director engagement, I'm estimating the IC, individual contributor involvement, I'm now crunching the numbers, assessing the travel requirements, assessing the travel and overhead costs, and then looking at some other variables. And then what I get down here is a step-by-step approach with the assumptions, the annual benchmarks, the time investment per role, and at the very bottom, considerations and ranges. So I would, given the typical complexity, a range of $50,000 to $100,000 in internal costs, with all of the breakdowns of how ChatGPT has got there. So just a fantastic example of how reasoning can really help you to deal with much more complex challenges than just give me an answer. You might be thinking about, how do we launch in a specific country? How do we compete with a larger competitor? How do we budget for the coming year? These are much higher level challenges that AI can help you with. Now, to get to GPT-01, what you'll find at the top of your chat, let me just go back over here. You'll find this box here. Most often, you're probably using 4.0, which is their sort of premier model that is used for most tasks at the moment. And then 01 is the advanced reasoning model, and 01 mini is a lighter version of that. Okay, so that looked at some of the work that you do in terms of working on a project to provide context or a wrapper around a specific set of tasks. And then we also looked at reasoning about how you can come up with far more complex and convoluted challenges for AI to help you think through a bigger problem. And now we're going to look at the third bucket, which is work that you pass on to others. And here you could think about, you typically need to write something. Maybe it's a report, maybe it's a blog article, maybe it's a proposal. You need to create first drafts, and you need to figure out how to structure these things. Having written a first draft, you then need to improve it. How do I make this readable for my potential customer or supplier? Maybe I need to change the style to deal with a more formal or less formal document. Maybe I need it to be longer or shorter. And then you may also be reviewing stuff that is being either created by yourself or created by other people, and you need to get that approved before you send it off. So this is a very typical part of anyone's role. I've got to write stuff, I've got to edit it, I've got to review it. So let me hop over now again to ChatGPT, and I'm going to introduce you to a new tool that they released just before Christmas, which is called Canvas. Now, I write a lot of blog articles, and so I am going to say I have just written the first draft of this blog. Can you use Canvas to mark up your comments in the sidebar for how I could improve the article? Okay, and then I am just going to upload the document. It's a PDF, but I could also link it to a Google document. You can see here that this has automatically noted that it's going to open it in the Canvas, because I've said, please, can you use the Canvas? Alternatively, you can see Canvas is down here, and you could add it in there. So I'm going to click Go here. And what you'll see is that ChatGPT is going to open up a new window. And here it's got the document from my blog, and it's just writing that out. And it's opened this on the right-hand side as a new window, rather than as a response in the chat. Okay, now ChatGPT has finished rewriting the document and adding in its comments. And so here we can see we've added 6 comments. And if I scroll up to the top here, this is my exact document. And here we've got a highlight, and one of the comments here, considering adding a specific example of groundbreaking AI product to make the introduction more engaging and relatable. Frameworks you may have heard of include LangChain, Crew AI, and Langflow. You could briefly describe each of these frameworks to help the readers unfamiliar with them. So yeah, I'm going to accept that and click apply. And then ChatGPT is just going to write that suggested comment in there. Now, this is a fully editable document. These suggest, oh, I'm not typing in the right place. So you can edit this much in the same way that you have got a Google Doc, except you've got ChatGPT offering you all of these recommendations. In addition here, we can do things like adjust the length. So I want to make this a little bit longer. Go. And ChatGPT is going to extend this document out a little bit by taking the context. I could make it shorter. I can change the reading style to more college degree or more junior. So try out Canvas, really fun way of changing the way that you are creating documents. And as I switch over now back to the slides, whilst we're not talking about development in this session, Canvas works just as well for code as it does for words. And within here, just an example of how adding comments into code, ChatGPT has automatically, in the canvas, added in the comments and suggested how the code is actually working. So there we've talked about 3 specific examples of how you can use publicly available tools today to accelerate your work. We looked at Notebook LM as a way of receiving work from other people and quickly understanding complex regulations, contracts, or requests from partners, suppliers, customers, investors. We then looked at work that you do yourself and how you can use Claude projects to provide a wrapper around a set of work or tasks that you're doing. We looked at O1 for reasoning and how you can use ChatGPT O1 for much more complex pieces of work. And then finally, we looked at Canvas as a way of collaborating and iterating on the work that you are creating to deliver to other people. Now, as we wrap up our session, I want to help you to get started. And one of the key things here is about the art of prompt writing. As I was growing up, my parents were always very keen to tell me that you must think before you speak. And I convert that now to say to you, you should think before you prompt. One of the great things about Claude and ChatGPT is the fact that you can just start typing. But it's also one of the worst things. What do I put in this box? The temptation to just click return and get an answer actually ends up with you providing poorer prompts. So when you think about what AI is good at and what it's poorer at, models like ChatGPT and Claude are called probabilistic. What that means is they're going to provide you the response that you probably want, or the next word that you probably want. It is the alternative to what's called deterministic, which is most traditional software, which is sort of hard-coded and it gives you the specific answer. If you ask the same question to a traditional piece of software 100 times, you will get the same response. But with AI, that is not the situation. If you ask the same question 100 times, you'll get slight variations, and that's one of the beauties of it. So when you think about the types of questions that you're asking, not great questions are very specific ones. What is the date of this? What is the value of that? Who is or was that person? When was or when did this thing happen? How much is this or that? What did we sell last year? How much are we going to sell this year? These are very specific answers that LLMs at the moment are not great at providing you with that response. Where they're much better is much more creative and thinking tasks. So help me think through this approach. How would you approach this? What am I missing? What options are there? And so when I showed you that example of a manager thinking through how they should support their direct report, these are exactly the types of questions. Help me think through how I can coach this individual. How would you approach running the one-to-one with this individual? These are much better questions. And when you think about the question, the prompt that you're writing, I think about it through these 4 buckets. So the first thing is, can you give as much context to the LLM as possible? Now, either that is in your prompt directly, so you're explaining what you want the prompt to do, or what you want the LLM to do, a bit of background, or you can use a project to hold all of that context up front so that then you don't need to provide it each time. You need to be very, very clear about what you're asking. And here I think about if you were working with a new intern in your team, you need to give them very specific requirements of what it is that you want. This is the format that I want. This is the scope. This is exactly what I want. So that if you gave it to 3 different people, they would all understand what it is that you're asking for. The next one is a little bit about coaching and guiding. So if you've got quite a complex task, would you break that down into 4 steps for an individual if you were providing it to them? First, I want you to go and research the competitor. Second, I'd like you to write up about their core products. And thirdly, I'd like you to explain where you think our biggest opportunity is to compete with them. Let the tool know that chain of thought or that reasoning, and it'll help them to think through. And then finally, about refinement. How do you help the tool to understand what it has created, to understand where there might be gaps in what it's created, and then to go through a feedback loop before it provides you with its final response? As I say, the input window of ChatGPT or Claude is so tempting to hit return. It's very difficult often to write a long, one-page prompt. So the way that I approach it is to build out a prompt in a Google Doc or a Word document if you're on Microsoft, and actually to include that context, include those requirements, include some examples of what good looks like, include some exceptions. And once you've got that, then put that into either a project or just an individual prompt. And as I say, if you said these exact words to a new intern on your team, would they be able to give you what you want? And if not, then your prompt is not good enough. Go back to rewriting it. Now, to leave you today with some work to get onto and to incorporate these tools into your own work, I'm going to provide you with 3 templates. The first is a My Work template. And this template has got 3 tabs on it. 1 for work you receive, 1 for work that you do, and 1 for work that you pass on. And just simply helps you to think through your own role with what you do and think about, in this example, for work you receive, what types of things do you get from clients, from customers, from suppliers, from investors? What is it that you get from them? Is it a requirement? Is it a proposal? What challenges do you have with understanding that and taking action on it? What could be better? And then how might AI be able to improve that for you, to do a better job, to understand a new topic, and to be able to be more effective in getting that work into your pipeline? Next up, I'll provide you with a project template. If you're going to use either ChatGPT projects or Claude projects, this will help you just to get your information together first before you go and create that project itself. So it'll include the name, the description, some of the instructions, some of the knowledge that you might want to add in there. And when we think about projects, as I say, yes, I showed you an example for a manager using it for direct reports, but you can have a project for each of your key customers. You can have a project for a regulation. You can have a project for an internal process like hiring or holidays or expenses. You can have a project for an individual country, for example. So use these and figure out how they can best help you. And then the third template that I'm going to leave you with is a prompt design template, which uses some of those 4 areas that I talked about. Who's going to use the prompt? Where's it going to be used? What's the purpose of the prompt? What templates and exceptions and examples might you have? Once you've created your prompts in there, super easy to drop them then into either a project or just into ChatGPT. So the next 30 days, this is about you getting going fast and transforming the way that you work and being able to learn and adopt new skills at a transformational rate. First off, I would spend some time. It'll only take you 30 minutes or so to use the My Work template, map out the work that you receive, do, and pass to others. Then use the project template to create multiple projects for either repeatable or critical parts of your role. I would easily see each one of you creating at least 4 or 5 projects for different parts of your role. Then look at the prompt template, and either for a specific customer or project or task that you do, create a great prompt that has all of the details that are provided in the template, and then talk to each other. This is not a time to hoard what you know and what you're doing. This is about sharing what's working, what's not working within your team and across the wider organization. With that, we come to the end of our 1 hour AI inspiration briefing. I hope with some of those examples that you've seen, you've got at least one idea that you can take out right now and start using within your own team and your own work. In the real session, there'll be a QR code here for the resources, but anyone that's watching this on YouTube can get in contact with me at CharlieCowan.ai. Follow me on X, it's CharlieCowan, or for more YouTube, subscribe